I have spent more than half my life looking at people at their worst. That is not how the job description is written, of course. On paper I investigate events, collect evidence, follow procedure, file reports. But if you strip away the polite language, my work is simple. I meet the moment when a mask slips. Some cases pass through you. You do your job, you write your conclusions, you move on. But some cases do not pass. They stay. They follow you home. They sit in the passenger seat of your car at night. They are there in the silence between one breath and the next. This is one of those cases. It began with a single frame on a security monitor. One frozen image that should have been routine, forgettable, just another scene in another shopping mall. But it was not routine. And I have never been able to forget it. A nearly empty mall. Cold fluorescent lights humming over polished tiles. A long service hallway that most shoppers never even know exists. And in the middle of that hallway she walked. The girl everyone called perfect. I will call her Anna. That is not her real name, but it is close enough for the story. Close enough for the way it still feels in my chest when I say it. Anna moved with a kind of controlled calm. You could see it in the recordings. Her shoulders relaxed. Her steps measured. As if the world was always moving, just a little slower for her than for everyone else. People watched her online. Morning routines filmed in soft light. Healthy breakfasts laid out like magazine photos. White sheets, clean counters, folded clothes. Every frame curated. Every moment polished. She sold the idea of a life without chaos. People trusted her for that. But in that security frame, in that gray hallway, she was not alone. Beside her walked a small girl. Thin arms. A backpack that looked a little too heavy. Shoes that were just a little too big. The girl looked up at Anna, in that way only children do. With admiration and the quiet belief that adults know what they are doing. That adults will keep them safe. That girl did not belong to Anna. And that was where everything began to go wrong. People think tragedies start with screaming. They imagine broken glass, sirens, dramatic threats. But this one began with a child holding the wrong hand in a place that felt safe. Earlier that afternoon, the mall had been loud and bright. The kind of weekend crowd you can almost feel vibrating in the air. Families sharing trays of food. Teenagers drifting in groups, laughing too loud. Music from different stores fighting in the background. I was on duty that day. It was a slow shift. No serious calls, nothing urgent. The kind of day that makes you forget, for a few hours, that bad things can happen in ordinary places. Anna had come to the mall for a small meet and greet. A casual event arranged by a local store. Take some photos with followers. Sign a few things. Record a short video or two. Nothing unusual. Nothing that would have stood out. The camera saw her long before I did. They caught her arriving, walking through the main entrance, smiling at someone off screen, adjusting her hair. She looked exactly like her online videos. Calm. Soft. Perfect. When we later pulled the footage, I watched every second of those early minutes. And something began to bother me. She was looking around. Not in the way someone does when they are nervous, but in the way someone does when they are taking mental notes. She glanced at exits. At corners. At staff doors. Most people move through space without really seeing it. Anna seemed to notice everything. At the time, no one found that strange. Why would they? It was only later, after everything that happened, that this small detail began to feel important. The girl, Clara, appears on camera for the first time near the edge of the crowd surrounding Anna. That is not her real name either. It is the one I use when I talk about her. When I need some way to separate the file in my hand from the child in my memory. Clara was about 10 years old. Small. Hair pulled back in a way that suggested someone had tried to tame it quickly that morning. She wore a backpack that looked like it had passed through a few older siblings before reaching her. She stood a little apart from everyone else. Not close enough to be in the group, not far enough to be truly alone. Watching. You can see her hands tightening around the straps of her backpack. See the way she shifts her weight from one foot to the other. A small motion of someone who is building courage in tiny pieces. She takes a few steps toward Anna. Stops. Turns her head as if checking whether anyone is watching her. No one is. Then she steps forward again. I have watched that approach more times than I can count. There is something almost painful in the hesitation of a child who wants to be seen and is afraid of being in the way. Eventually, Clara reaches Anna. Anna turns, notices her, and bends down slightly. Her smile is immediate. Practiced. Warm. We do not have audio from that camera, so I have never heard what Anna said to her. But I have seen the effect. Clara laughs. Her shoulders lift toward her ears. Her head tilts down. It is the body language of a child who has just been invited into a world she only watched from a distance before. To anyone at the mall, the scene must have looked harmless. Sweet, even. A kind young woman taking time to speak to a shy fan. Kindness is easy to fake, and danger often wears a polite expression. I am not saying Anna was pure danger. I am saying nothing about that moment was as simple as it looked. For nearly 10 minutes after that first contact, Anna and Clara remain near the same area. Anna poses for photos with other people. Clara hovers close, never touching, always watching. At one point Anna looks down at her and says something. Clara nods. Then comes the moment that changes everything. Anna reaches out her hand. It is a small gesture, almost casual. Clara hesitates for the length of a breath. And then she takes it. That is how history shifts. On decisions that feel small at the time. Hand in hand, they begin to move away from the center of the mall. Away from the bright lights. Away from the crowds. Away from places where people would later say, if only we had noticed. They pass the food court. They walk by the glass storefronts. You can see different camera angles catch them, one after another, like a chain of quiet witnesses. In each frame, Clara walks a little closer to Anna. Her shoulders relax. Her steps match the older girl's pace. Trust has a shape. You can see it in the way people move near each other. Eventually they reach the turn. On the map the mall hands out, that corridor does not exist. It was built for staff use. Cleaning crews. Deliveries. Maintenance. Not for children who came to meet someone they admired. The camera covering that area is older than the others. Grainy. Black and white. You can hear the faint buzz of its aging hardware when you sit alone in the monitoring room at night. That camera recorded the image that haunts me. Anna steps across and sometimes the most dangerous hand a child can hold. Belongs to the person who looks perfect. Threshold first. The bright, warm light of the mall thins behind her. The corridor ahead is washed in a cold, flat glow. Clara follows one step behind. In that single frame, you can see their silhouettes overlapping slightly. You can see the space between their hands. You can see the moment when both of them leave the world where people are watching and enter the world where no one is. Then they walk out of view. That is the last time any camera captures them together. What happened after that belongs to a part of the mall without surveillance. A blind spot in more ways than one. The call came in later that evening. A missing child. Parents frantic. Last seen at the mall. I have answered many of those calls. Most of the time, the story ends well. A child went to the restroom and took a wrong turn. A teenager turned off their phone and lost track of time. Most of the time, we began as we always do. Verify the last known location. Pull the footage. Reconstruct movements. I remember standing in the monitoring room, the glow of multiple screens painting the walls. The security guard sat beside me, shifting nervously in his chair. We watched Clara materialize from the crowd. We watched her approach Anna. We watched them talk. We watched them move together. When they turned into that staff corridor, the guard swallowed hard. He said, very quietly, that the hallway was not meant for customers. That doors there were always locked. That only staff had keys. But the doors had not been locked that day. At least one of them had not. Interviews with staff began immediately. Some remembered seeing Anna in the mall. Some did not. One cleaner insisted he had passed 2 female figures near the service corridor, but could not say whether one of them was a child. Stories shifted with each retelling. One clerk said Anna had looked anxious that day, checking her phone obsessively. Another insisted she seemed relaxed, even happier than usual. A third claimed to have seen Clara with a woman who was not Anna earlier in the afternoon, though no footage supported this. Memory is a fragile instrument, especially when sharpened by fear. People see what they think they should have seen. They rearrange details without knowing it. We traced every possible path from that corridor, measured distances, studied blueprints, checked every emergency exit log. Parts of the record made sense. Parts did not. There were time gaps that no one could explain. It felt, more than once, as if pieces of the day had been quietly removed while no one was looking. Anna herself became a puzzle. Her online life was easy to document. Videos, photos, comments. A trail of curated perfection. Her offline life was different. Neighbors from a small apartment she sometimes used described her as polite but distant. Never loud. Never messy. Never quite present. One neighbor mentioned hearing a child's laughter once, late at night, but later admitted it might have been a television program. Friends, if that is the right word, gave conflicting impressions. Some said she was warm, supportive, always ready to listen. Others said they felt something missing when they spoke to her, as if she were reciting lines from a script instead of truly talking. People rarely fit into the simple boxes we try to build for them. Angel, monster, victim, villain. Most of us live in the space between. That is where Anna lived. And that is where this case still lives. As for Clara, the investigation revealed a quieter story. A child who loved drawing, who kept notebooks filled with small, careful sketches of places she wanted to visit. A child who followed people like Anna online, and believed that one day she might live a life as tidy and beautiful as theirs looked on a screen. She had begged to go to the mall that day. That much her family confirmed. There was an event, she had said. Someone she admired would be there. She believed, with the simple certainty of 10 years of life, that meeting that person would be a good thing. Children do not imagine that harm can come wrapped in soft smiles and perfect lighting. They should not have to imagine that. The case dragged on. Days turned into weeks. Leads appeared and dissolved. Sightings were reported and dismissed. Rumors bloomed like mold in the corners of the town. Some people blamed them all. Some blamed the family. Some blamed the influence of the internet as a whole, as if the entire digital world were a single living creature that had reached out and taken Clara for its own. Very few people blamed Anna directly in the beginning. She was too familiar, too well presented. But as the investigation deepened and certain sealed details began to circulate in whispers, public opinion shifted. The perfect girl from the screen became the center of speculation. Every old clip of her was replayed, not as entertainment, but as evidence. Viewers dissected her expressions, slowed down her gestures, decided what they meant based on whatever story they wanted to believe. Guilt, innocence, manipulation, despair. I watched some of those videos once. I did not watch them twice. Investigations are supposed to move toward clarity. This one seemed to move further into fog with every passing month. At some point, long after the cameras had stopped recording and the public had turned its attention to other stories, I went back to that mall alone. It was late. The building was still open, but only a few stores remained lit. Shoppers had thinned out to a trickle. I walked without really looking at the displays, moving through the same path the two of them had taken. I stood in the place where Clara first appeared on camera. I tried to imagine what she had been thinking. The courage it takes for a child to step forward and speak to someone they admire. The electric feeling of being noticed. The warmth of a gentle voice saying your name. Then I walked the route toward the service corridor, past the food court, past the reflective glass. People around me moved as they had that day, unaware that they were walking through the ghost of a moment that had changed someone's world. I reached the entrance to the corridor. Staff only. That is what the small sign on the wall said. But doors do not always keep the right people in or out. They are only wood and metal. It is the choices of the people holding the handles that matter. I stepped inside. The air was different. Cooler. Quieter. The sounds of the mall dulled behind me. My steps echoed off the bare walls. I walked slowly, the way I imagine Anna did. The way I know Clara did. At one point I stopped and placed my hand against the wall. The concrete felt smooth and lifeless beneath my palm. But somewhere beneath that surface, in the invisible residue of time, I felt the trace of them. Two figures crossing an invisible line together. One believing she was in control. The other believing she was safe. Neither of them aware of how wrong they both were. I cannot tell you how this story ends. Not completely. Certain parts are sealed in case files I am not allowed to open anymore. Certain parts never made it into any document at all. But I can tell you this much. Anna was not the flawless guardian angel her followers imagined. And she was not the simple villain that some people later tried to make her into. She was human. Complicated. Broken in places no one could see through a screen. Clara was a child who reached out toward that broken light, believing it to be whole. And I am a detective who still sees them, over and over, stepping into that hallway, frozen in that one gray frame that never wants to fade. If you have stayed with me through this memory, through this unsolved knot of what might have been, and what was, then you carry a small piece of it now too. Right somewhere, in your own way, the words that echo in my head every time I walk into a bright public place and see a child take an adult's hand. It seems safe, but it was not. Remember that. Because safety is not guaranteed by crowds or cameras or friendly smiles. It is a fragile thread we pretend is stronger than it is.